Yeah, we should all, whether we have, time or we want to share it publicly in a forum like this, we all should have some faith stories. We all should have some places in our life, some markers, some stones, as we talked about last week, that were laid down in the place where God showed up and God did something incredible. And we need those markers, those milestones. We need to be able to go back and see how God worked and where God worked, not only for ourselves, but God places you in the path of other people that need to hear how God came through for you. And one of the greatest ways that you can encourage people is just brag on God. Not brag on you, but brag on God, what God did for you. That gives more people hope than you might realize. And tell your faith stories. Talk about those moments in your life where God built your faith. And it's kind of like growing up physically. I've stopped growing up. Now I'm growing out. I'm trying to stop that process. That's really hard to do. But at some point, you stop growing up. But as you grow, you don't see yourself grow. You don't see, sometimes with kids, you look at them one day and you think, did they grow a foot overnight? But just like it's hard to see that growth physically, you can see it on the doorpost, right? When you measure and you go back and you can see that progress. And I think that happens spiritually as well, that we can't see the growth while we're in it. It's just going back and realizing where God has moved before. The Bible tells us, and we think about Joshua 6, we're going to read this. The Bible tells us that we walk by faith, not by sight. And when we look at the nation of Israel in Joshua 6, they also fight by faith and not by sight. And our battles today are a little different, or maybe a lot different than the battle that Israel was facing here. But we still battle. We still struggle. And we still fight. And we don't fight for victory. We fight from victory. Okay, so we have been given the victory already because Christ has secured our victory. And so we don't fight for it, we fight from it. We are more than conquerors. Super Nikeo in the Greek, super victors. If you have Nike tennis shoes, Nike is a Greek word that means victor, conqueror. We are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. So we are victorious, but we still fight. We still have battles. And the battles that we fight by faith. If we walk by faith, we also fight by faith as well. So let's read this familiar passage, all right? I know it's 27 verses, and we've got quite a bit to get through tonight. We'll do it as quick as we can. Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given," that's past tense, "I have given Jericho into your hand with its king and mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city once. You'll do this for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark, and on the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times. And the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout. And the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up, every one straight before him." All right, so I want to take chapter 6 in sections. I don't want to read all 27 verses all at once. And I want you to pay close attention to your handouts tonight so that we can go through this quickly. If you look at the background, number one, the background historical setting, this was the first major conflict of Israel crossing the Jordan River. We talked about that last week. Jericho was the largest city in Canaan, the most fortified city in Canaan, had massive walls. I've got some pictures. Actually, I have a couple of videos I want you to look at as we think about this tonight. And this was a This is a massive problem for Israel. Israel had a very large army. I think you go back to Numbers chapter 26, and it said that the number of men who were of fighting age were 600,000. Okay? So, men of fighting age. That's not the older men, the younger men, the children, or the women. So we're talking probably 2 million people here. And even with that massive number of people, they were not a siege army. And that's what, with the parapets and the ladders and being able to, the trebuchets, trying to break down wall, they didn't have any of that stuff. So they were not able to fight this battle here at Jericho. And so what God is wanting to do at the very outset here, the very first battle that they're fighting, God wants them to understand that your victory is going to be determined by your faith, not your military strength, not your power, not your wisdom. That victory is going to be determined by faith. All right, so we see some of this here and what is going on as far as background. I want you to see a couple pictures here and some video. This is sort of an artist rendering of what Jericho looked like. What's the first thing you notice about Jericho? It's elevated. What else? 2 walls. Okay, fairly large city. Did you know that Jericho had 2 walls? They did. And if you'll notice that revetment there at the bottom, that was very sophisticated at the time. It was a bottom portion of the wall that was sort of sloped. And so you were not able to advance on that wall. They're about 40 feet high. So just a massive, massive city here. You can go to Israel today and see the actual walls of Jericho. So this is one of the sections that still remain. You can take tours. Some of you may have been to Israel and gone to Jericho. It's a very popular tourist spot. And you can see this is part of the revetment, they think, at the very bottom of a part of the wall. This is interesting here because there's only one part of the wall that didn't fall. And so if you go to Israel now and take a tour of this place, archaeologists tells us that this is Rahab's house. It was on the outside and it didn't fall. It was the only part of the wall that didn't fall. So this is the only part of Jericho that remains. It's, circular. I know it's hard to see, but some steps going up. Remember, her house is on the outside of the wall. So that's the only part of the wall that remains right there. This is Tick mentioned about the elevation. So if you're standing on the ground looking up, this is how elevated the city was. This is without walls. So you can imagine 40-foot walls being on top of this and two different walls. So if you're standing back looking up, the wall looks twice as large because you got an outer wall and then an inner wall behind it, that's elevated like that. So that's the actual place where you can go. And then this is part of a house that was inside the city. So you can kind of get an idea. We're going to look at a thing here in a minute that shows houses, but this is the outline of the house. So we're talking 3,000 years old, and the foundations are still there. So that's how well built this place was. This next one, this is just like a 3D rendering of what the city looked like. And it's going to show you a little bit more about the walls. There are inner homes and outer homes in between those 2 walls. We kind of know what the homes looked like because of the foundations that are there. And you can see it was pretty dense, densely populated. A lot of people that live there. They're going to show a close-up of the outer wall. You can see that revetment there on the bottom, that sort of sloped. Again, that's about 40 feet high, so you can see how imposing of a view that was. Now, what's interesting, when you go to the ruins of Jericho, all of the bricks that were, and the stones were forced outward. They fell outward. So you'd think if an army is coming to destroy, the army is going to destroy the bricks and they'll fall inward. It's as if something inside the city pushed the walls out. So all of the stones fell out towards the bottom there. And this next, so y'all just have to forgive me for this one. This is a group of Orthodox Jews standing at the site of Jericho, and they all have shofars, ram's horns. And so one of the things that we read about what happened here is that God tells His people to blow the shofars and to shout. And this is only like 30 of them or so. I have no idea how loud this is, but this is kind of what it may have sounded like. So you can imagine about 500,000 of those. And no wonder, how many times do we read in Jericho, the hearts of the people melted because of Israel coming in. So it just gives a little bit of historical perspective there about what is happening, and that God is bringing them to this place where He wants them to fight by faith rather than by sword. All right. So we'll look at the second thing, number 2. We just read this, verses 1 through 5, that God gives this unusual command. All right. March around the city once a day for 6 days. This is not how people fought battles back then. Okay. March around the city once a day for 6 days. You got 7 priests to blow trumpets, and then you march 7 times around the city on the 7th day. And then after you finish marching around, then you shout and you blow the shofar. This strategy would have sounded very, very strange to everybody there, even the people in Jericho. They were probably looking at this group going, what is happening? What is going on? You know, so I imagine there was some fear, there was some confusion with Jericho, like, what is this strategy of people walking around and shouting and yelling? I mean, think about this strategy on D-Day when the soldiers landed on the beaches of Normandy and they just stormed the beach yelling and shouting. That's not a military strategy that's going to bring you success. But yet, this is exactly what God is doing here. So I love this thought of what we see early on in this story, that faith often requires obedience before understanding. That's so important for us, because many times as God is leading us and we are stepping out on faith, we want understanding first before obedience. God, explain this. Show me, how long am I going to be here? What's this going to cost? How is this going to work? Let's answer those questions, and then once I understand that, then I'll step out in obedience. Well, the exact opposite is happening here. God just says, trust me, right? Obey me. You don't have to understand it. Just obey me. Why do you think God would choose this method, this strategy, instead of a normal strategy? Because when you go throughout the rest of Joshua, I mean, they're fighting. So why this strategy now? Why would God want them to use this now? Okay, and what's the answer to that question? God did. Yeah. Maybe God was preparing them for future battles. Yeah. What else? Yeah. God showing people how strong He is. Now, at this point, you would think that Israel would know how strong God is. And think about us. At this point, after everything that God has done for us, we should know how powerful God is, but yet we still doubt sometimes. So here's another reminder of that. So an unusual command. The second thing is that the people demonstrate obedient faith. Let's keep reading. So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant. Let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord." And he said to the people, "Go forward. March around the city. Let the armed men pass on before the ark of the Lord." And just as Joshua had commanded the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward, blowing the trumpets, with the ark of the covenant of the Lord following them. The armed men were walking before the priests who were blowing the trumpets, and the rear guard was walking after the ark, while the trumpets blew continually. But Joshua commanded the people, "You shall not shout or make your voice heard, neither shall any word go out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shall shout." So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the city, going about at once, and they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. Joshua rose early in the morning. The priests took up the ark of the Lord, and the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord walked forward, and they blew the trumpets continually. And the armed men were walking before them. The rear guard was walking after the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. And the second day they marched around the city once and returned into the camp. So they did this for 6 days. What we're seeing Israel doing is obeying the Lord and doing exactly what He said to do. Okay? They heard what He said to do, and so they are demonstrating obedient faith. They obeyed without complaint. At least it's not written. They obeyed without hesitation. They didn't have to call a deacons meeting together and say, "What are we going to do?" or "How are we going to do this?" or "How are we going to," they were just marching quietly. No noise, no shouts, no words. I think that can be more intimidating to the people of Jericho, that these crazy Israelites are walking around and all they're doing is blowing a ram's horn, but they're not making any sound. And they did that once a day for 6 days. And I love the lesson here that real faith is demonstrated in consistent obedience.
Trusting that God was going to protect them while they went and marched around Jericho. Because with all that fortification and all those turrets, they could have obliterated them as they walked around.
That's right. Yeah. There's no mention of weapons. Israel, no way to defend themselves. It kind of makes you wonder, why didn't Jericho, attack and send the army out? We don't know that. They were probably just scared to death of these crazy people walking around in circles with the Ark of the Covenant. Jericho had never seen this Ark before. They had no idea what this golden thing was that they were doing. So, there's probably a lot of confusion there. But here is such a great lesson for us that real faith is demonstrated not when we just do it once, but when we consistently obey. Not just 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, but God told them to do it for 6 days. They did it for 6 days. So I think sometimes we fail to see God build our faith because we just give up too early. We quit. We stop on day 3. We're like, "Hey, nothing's happening yet." And so we fail to learn those lessons that God wants us to learn in these moments of suffering or difficulty or confusion. And listen, let me tell you something. If God brings a situation into your life and He wants to use that to grow you up, and you somehow fail to obey, or you somehow try to buy your way out of it, or talk your way out of it, or move your way out of it, whatever it may be, can I tell you, God's going to bring that situation right back into your lap. And you will repeat first grade over and over and over again till you graduate.